6:15 now, so in between meetings, 6:15.
Good evening, call to order the Bethel Local Schools Board of Education special meeting in regards to our facilities committee. The date is Monday, August 9th, 2021. Call to order time is 6:15 p.m. Apologize in advance to our viewers for some technology difficulties we were experiencing this evening. Ms. Reese, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Rick Gilbert, Justin First,
Present.
Rob Walmart, Caleb Rumble, Danny Elam,
Here.
Ray Sebastian, here, Julie Reese, present.
Do we have any additions to the agenda? Communications, meetings, and announcements.
When is next month's meeting time wise going to be? Oh, I guess it's years.
Number 5, items for discussion, subcommittee reports. Letter A is report status updates, project update, and also construction budget discussion. I'd like to welcome Laura Little from Garmin Miller here this evening, who can provide an update on essentially a recap of last week's meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So we had a good meeting last week talking about the design development for the K-5 and stadium project. We, like all phases, we do have to work to get the project within budget. And that checkpoint, basically that phase submission is that checkpoint. Let's see where we're at. Let's make sure it's on budget. And so last week we had a meeting to go through and get the project back on budget and make some decisions on where items could be cut and what items are most important to Bethel. So we did have, we still have some work to do. We need to go through and try to find some, what are those items that we're going to, some options within like plumbing, the mechanical, electrical items of what can we cut to get within that dollar value that we were looking at. But at this time, now that we have that under budget, on budget, now we feel comfortable to go out to bid with the early site package. So our team is working on that and we'll have those documents to the construction manager in 2 weeks. So they can go out to bid with that project, with that portion of the project, go out to bid for the early site. So that way they can start moving dirt, getting the building pads ready to go. So that way in the spring, they'll be able to start foundations. Are there any specific questions that you have for me at this time?
What constitutes the early site package?
So it depends on every project. What we talked about with Peterson is providing, basically we're giving them the grading plans. So they're able to go through and move the earthwork, get all of the grading for where we intend it to be at the final end of the project. They're trying to get those pads built up for the stadium, for the track, for the all of the pavement, drive areas, and the building, trying to get all of those elevations where they need to be. They'll also be looking at putting in the main utility lines. So that's essentially what they're looking at right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any more questions for Laura?
So groundbreaking September.
We probably should be planning one, yeah, about then. That would get still time before they start. Well, I guess if you want them to get all the equipment in, might want to go a little bit later, but we can work with Peterson on a good date for that.
Do you feel comfortable kind of filling in everybody on a couple of the variances that we've written to OFCC?
Sure. So one of the cost reduction items that we were talking about is the fire alarm cabling, not having that within conduit. That's not a code requirement. That is an OFCC requirement in their design manual. And so we're asking a variance to go away from that, having that within conduit. No code impact to you. It's a cost impact. So that was one of the cost saving items that we were looking at. The other one that we are looking at is the if within the elementary classrooms, not having sinks within those classrooms. That was a cost reduction item that we were talking about. Basically, in the design manual, it requires that within that casework that there is a sink in every classroom. But that was one of the cost suggestions to remove some of those or all of those sinks. And then we also have another variance to OFCC to look at the windows from a typical aluminum window with 3 panes of glass to an aluminum window with 2 panes of glass. That third pane is really just to hide or to encase the blinds so that you can't get to those blinds. That was a cost saving item as well, going to the aluminum storefront system. Still has the same insulated glass, but then we would have manual roller shades.
Do you anticipate OFCC making a determination on those variances as far as the request, or when do they meet to discuss it?
They meet tomorrow. They meet the 2nd and the 4th Tuesdays of every month. I'm hoping that we get an answer on 2 of those tomorrow. The other one, we may not get an answer until the next meeting.
Are they typically receptive to requests, or are we just pushing paper?
I do not have a good feel one way or the other.
Okay. Once they meet, do they respond fairly quickly? Like, will we know within like a day or so, or is it the next meeting, or a month or 2? No idea either.
Sorry, no. If we don't get something within this week, I'll definitely be bumping our project manager and asking her when we think we might hear something.
Are there any other items that you need from us in the immediate as far as next steps? Either from the school or the facilities committee?
Next steps, we do need to meet to talk about the stadium, the field house building. That'll be one thing that we'll have a meeting on. We're going to have a meeting regarding door hardware. Start getting that process moving forward. That will be one of the next meetings that we have with you, is starting to look at door hardware and who gets keys and how the building is keyed. So that will be one of the next ones in the next month or so. At this time, I don't know that we have anything outstanding that we need from Bethel.
Any of the other participants have any questions for Ms. Little? Or people in the crowd?
Hi, Laura, this is Natalie Donahue. I attended the trustee meeting, well, actually it was the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for the variance for the parking lot and the driveway entrance. And I think there was the barrier for the plants and shrubbery. And that was July 28th. just part of my normally attending those meetings. And I was curious to know, he didn't say, Jeff attended and spoke on behalf of the board and the project. And I was just wondering, he didn't necessarily say how much was going to be saved by doing that work. And then that was my first question, if you can share that, if you know. And then second question is, are you sure, like, are you, just because you have the variance, are you 100% sure you're going to use the variance, or will you know that later, or you know that now maybe? Thank you.
You want me to answer that, Justin?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the variance, I know we had one regarding the drive widths, which Bethel Township's code is wider than what the OSDM requirement is. Yes, we will be using that variance for sure. We will not be providing wider drive widths than what's typical. And then I think the other one was on plantings. The township or the zoning code requires a lot of plantings, buffering, and we will be using that variance as well. We will not be providing that buffer.
Can I ask about the parking lot size? I know it was reduced by a foot as well, from 10 feet down to 9 feet per parking space.
Yes, it was.
Does that fall in line with the fact that Bethel Township requires more than what the other organization does?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So Laura, for next month's meeting, what would we expect, or do we expect anything more between now and then in September?
So in the next month, we will be working on what are those value engineering items for mechanical plumbing. We will be working with your team on trying to identify what are those pieces. So by that meeting, we should have those answers.
Did you just want to tell the audience what the decision was? I mean, that's why, kind of why we had that line construction budget discussion, to just say what we ended up with kind of as the decision.
Just the overall, or you want
Yeah,
all
just
the
overall.
details?
No, just overall.
Okay. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Board of Education decided at our last emergency meeting that they were going to build a shell and not finish the internal finishings of essentially the fifth grade wing of the K-5 building. So it'll still have the same roof line, it'll still have the same brick fascia, it'll have all that stuff, just will not, well, it may or may not have a concrete floor put in. And obviously, we'll still need to have some of the electrical, plumbing, the infrastructure of the building placed in it at a later time that can allow that to be finished out and allow the fifth grade going at some point in time. The initial plan is to have it start off as a K-4 building with a fifth grade shell, and potentially the fifth grade stay at the existing building and maybe serve as a 5-8 intermediate type setting, at least for the temporary until that portion of the building can be finished out. Are there any details that I left out? Just trying to give a high level.
No, that was the high level. I think the only thing is, and I don't know, so I'm not saying this as any definitive, but depending on the growth we have between now and then, it still has the possibility of K-5 for maybe a year if we wanted to do that. I don't know. Based on the space that we need there and depending on the growth between now.
Yeah, it just depends on our numbers.
Yeah.
For example, we are still finishing up kindergarten. You know, we had kindergarten screening last week, and we're still accepting enrollment numbers every day. Right now, in our incoming kindergarten class, we have 154, which would be our largest class in the entire district. Our incoming 7th grade class was our largest, and they had 148, 49, somewhere around there. So, just kind of gives you an idea of the size of our incoming kindergarten class. But that could be an anomaly, or that could be here to stay. I don't think anybody knows. Because we didn't have 150 last year.
Right.
So.
And then I guess
we were in the 130s last year.
I guess the other thing is if anybody out there wants to donate $1.2 million, we can finish off. And we'll name it out.
So I don't know what that building is going to be in the future. Great, those numbers we can.
I'm sorry to cut it short, but I have to leave. But thank you. If there's anything else, just feel free to email me.
All right, thank you. All right, so we've talked a little bit about project update. We've given an update on the construction budget discussion, kind of where we're at. Laura's kind of told us next steps in the process and what we can expect in our next facilities meeting and some of the items that we have to meet with as a collective group and decide. With continuing to make decisions on door handles and those kind of things. As soon as I get updates, if I do, or when I do get updates on the variances that were submitted from OSCC or from Garmin Miller to the OFCC, I will share that out with the facilities members and also our Board of Education members, and we'll give an update in an upcoming meeting so the community can kind of find out where we're at in that process. We're going to continue to have to take a look at numbers and the budget moving forward as we fastly approach the early site package and kind of see where our construction numbers will fall into play at. We have any hearing in public health? While we're waiting on the checking of the hearing of the public, our next meeting date and time will be September 13th. September 13th. I'm assuming we'll be at 6 o'clock p.m. meeting. Okay, do not have any hearing in the public. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Laura Sebastian, can I get a second?
I'll say.
Mr. Eagle, Ms. Reese, can you please call the roll?
Justin Firks,
Yes.
Ken Buckle,
Yes.
Danny Eagle,
Yes.
Lori Sebastian,
Yes.
Julie Reese, yes.
Meeting adjourned at 6:34 p.m. Thank you for being here this evening, and we'll see you in a few minutes for our regular scheduled Board of Education meeting. And our next facilities meeting will be on September 13th, 2021 at 6 o'clock p.m. Thank you.
If you can stop sharing, and if you will,
Build it.
go off
Yeah.
YouTube.
It has no slide. At a later date, ours is
We're
slide.
gonna stop sharing. Once all that. Yeah, you go to the